On this episode of One on One, we're going to talk to someone. I don't know how we're going to get all this in. Miss Mary Aucoin is our guest. When we come back, we're going to start off and throw more information at you. So get ready, get the brain ready. We'll absorb it. We'll be right back. One on One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer. And welcome back to One on One. As promised, Miss Mary Aucoin. Miss Mary, good to have you on the show.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
And when I'm looking at, sometimes people send me information, sometimes they don't. We go down memory lane. But when I started reading all of the things that you've worked on and accomplished, I'm going, we're never going to work this in, but we're going to try. But I want you, just for the sake, I asked you before the show, Mary Grimmett Aucoin, your maiden name was Grimmett.
Correct.
And you told me Port Barre?
Port Barre.
Okay. Take me back to those days. Paint a picture for me. What was it like in your early childhood?
It was utopia compared to, today's times. A small town located on Bayou Catawba. There was one school where it was 1st through 12th. And it was in the shape of a U. You started on this wing, and then by the time you got to this wing, you were graduating from high school.
Wow.
My parents, Benita and Charlie Grimmett, were very, very active in the community. Mom was always president of the Parents Club, and Dad was actually mayor for 8 years. So they took pride. It was a bunch of just nice country people that settled into that area, mainly agricultural. There was Texaco's first oil field was right there off of Highway 190, which is practically across the street from where Port Barre is still located.
You just answered a big question of mine. Your mom was active in the community. Your dad was mayor. Is that where you get it from?
Apparently so.
Yeah.
I mean, she looked at the school and said, "We don't have a band." So she got a band of her friends, and the next thing you know, we had a band starting at the 4th grade.
And when I was reading over everything that you've accomplished, and I was seeing Edwin Edwards had asked you to start things, it seems like whenever there was something that needed to be done, your name popped up. Were you born with that ability to lead, or did you have to learn how to lead?
I was the oldest of 7, so I think just that particular thing helped you become a leader.
Yeah.
I can remember standing on a chair and frying eggs for my siblings while Mom was taking care of the little ones. The activities that went on within the little town, there was like a men's softball league back in the day. That was the big thing. All of these little settlements from Port Barre to Eunice to Church Point, all up and down in those areas. Everybody had a men's softball team. So, we'd go watch a lot of softball, and we played as kids in the neighborhood. We were a bunch of first cousins that were kind of gathered together because my dad and Mom lived on one corner. Right across the street was his sister and her family, and then across the other street was another sister and her family. So
y'all ruled the neighborhood.
We were a bunch of little rugrats, yes. Not very many toys. We made our toys, made our own kites, fixed our own bikes.
The toys were your siblings, huh? You had to go out there and play with the siblings. And I was asked, Grimmett is just not a familiar name here, but you said it was obviously mayor and everything. That was a big name from where you're from.
My grandfather was from the Louisiana-Arkansas area, the borders of the states,
Yeah.
and he was a logger, and that's how they made their living.
Wow. And I watch all those logging shows.
Oh,
You got to be
that's-
tough.
Yeah,
That's a tough, and you got to know to work equipment. You got to be tough. And
but
was
they
that,
didn't have that equipment in those days.
well, I'm about to say that it was probably prehistoric equipment back then.
That's
So,
right.
but you come from although your dad was mayor and all, it seems to me it's a blue collar mentality that you came from.
Yes. I mean, we were fortunate
Yeah.
in that Dad had a good job,
Mhm.
you know, and Mom just worked hard, staying at home and doing things. And they had goals in life. We started off with a little rent house from one of the relatives, and eventually they built their own house to house all of us.
Yeah. When did you sense, Miss Mary, that you were talented and gifted in a lot of different areas? Let's talk about athletics to start, because you were all state, right?
Yes, there's never been another All-State girl at Fort Perry since
the
that,
only one?
and that was in 1957. Yes,
Come
not
on,
to say
Fort
that
Barry,
they haven't
y'all got to
been
get
great.
on the map here.
Well, I'll tell you the story.
Mm-hmm.
We played a lot of softball as kids, and Dad was a softball player. He was a good athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he and Mom both played basketball when they were young and coming up, and from that same area, and so that was one of the main things. And basketball, it was softball and basketball. I was a good athlete. I was just had a natural ability. I was taller than most of them, and my dad built a basketball goal, and I was the first girl to learn how to shoot the jump shot. And they all thought I was a freak person coming into the games because I had mastered that jump shot.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
Well, that's probably a good way to look at your career. You did everything you were supposed to do, but maybe you weren't supposed to do. Were challenges just part of what made you tick?
I think, well, and everybody felt like I was the leader, so I was president of my class from 6th grade all the way through.
I saw that.
And yeah, I guess being the oldest of 7, having to help around the house, and you know, we had duties and everything else just to make the family work. And I think that's where it came from, and a tremendous amount of self-esteem. You know, I believed I could do it, so I did it.
But did that come from watching? Obviously, in a lot of these situations, people are born with the ability to lead, but a lot of times, in a lot of these interviews I do, people watched. You watched your dad be a public servant. You watched your mom's abilities.
Mm-hmm.
You were like a sponge.
I was, exactly. And that's exactly right. And I could not wait. I wanted to be a basketball coach because I had a very good coach.
Yeah.
And had really developed good basic fundamental skills. And I knew that I could do the same. So that's why when I finished high school and went to, we started at SLI, and in my sophomore year, they changed the name to USL. Now it's ULL.
Yeah.
I went into physical education because that's what I needed to do in order to become a coach.
I saw in I'll call it a resume. I saw that everybody remembers their first grade teacher. Sometimes when I ask people, who taught you in the 4th or 5th grade? They go, I don't remember. But they all remember their first grade teacher.
Mm-hmm.
You probably remember all your teachers because of what you did, but you mentioned your first grade teacher.
Miss Wilson.
Yeah. What was she like?
Very, very kind person, soft-spoken. And back in those days, the way you learned to read, you had these big, enormous books that they would put on the stand in the front of the class. And the teacher would read the words, and then we would read with her. And that's how we learned to read.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how fate sort of brings you some places. Ability brings you some places.
I believe that.
Skill sets bring you some places, but then all of a sudden fate intervenes. How much did fate intervene in everything? And we're going to list some of these in a little bit, but putting you on the path that you ended up on.
I believe that God has a plan for you. And if you just listen, and not be afraid to move forward on some of the challenges that are presented in front of you, you get to realize your dreams. I just had this goal of becoming a coach. I wanted to be a really good coach because I felt like I knew what it gave to me in order to be developed into an excellent player, And through the years, what I've really concentrated on is building self-esteem, and that's the reason why.
Were you an overachiever, or were you? Some people said, "Well, I just overachieved my whole life." Some people said, "No, I just had all these gifts and I put them into play." Some people really overachieve and they do really well. What were you?
I worked hard at what I did, and I was surprised a lot of times at what I accomplished.
Yeah.
So I guess it was just fate. I just always kind of had an idea in my mind about where I wanted to end up.
Yeah.
So
the transformation from Port Barre
to
Terrebonne
Houma,
Parish, Houma, Louisiana. How did that happen?
Well, when I finished in January of 1961, and there was a position here, and there was not very many schools in the middle of the year that had openings. Back in those days, when a teacher was expecting a child, you could not teach beyond your 3rd month of pregnancy. So there was a teacher that they were going to have to put on leave at Houma Junior High. And Mr. LeBlanc was hiring and firing back in those days.
Right.
And he called me at the dorm in Lafayette and offered me this job. He said, if you'll come and take this junior high job, then we'll give you head of the PE department when you get to South Terrebonne. Well, that was like dangling the carrot in front of the rabbit,
Right.
So that's how I ended up here. The other job was opening was in New Orleans, and I came from a small town. I wasn't going to that big city.
You wasn't one of those New Orleans ladies, huh?
No.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
All right, so you get to, like you said, Houma Junior High, South Terrebonne High School. Back in that time period, it was probably being built, right?
It was under construction. It wasn't totally, it was ready that fall, but in the summertime, Mr. Walker, who was the first principal, had called me and wanted to meet with me, and he wanted to show me the facility. So, yeah, they just had boards where the steps were the stairs going up to the second floor. But I remember that. It was still under construction. But come September, it was ready.
And I'm trying to recall, was it Kenneth Walker?
Yes,
Okay, I couldn't
Kenneth Walker.
All right. And what was it like at South Terrebonne? My sister taught at South Terrebonne, I want to say 33 years. Well, she was 33 years.
Who was your sister?
Myrna Falls.
Okay.
So she retired at South Terrebonne, but the kids over there were so down to earth
Oh, I loved them.
and just
Oh, those country
salt of the
children.
earth.
Yes. I mean, they were all kids like I was. They came from little small communities, you know, and very, very polite, very well disciplined, you know, had no problems at all. I was 20 years old teaching 18-year-old seniors.
Yeah. Well,
It was amazing.
destiny.
Yes.
Again.
Yes.
I want to ask you.
The school spirit was unbelievable because they had been given a choice, the seniors did, to stay at Terrebonne High School or come to the new school. And I mean, many of them, most of them that were from the southern area came to South Terrebonne. So, I mean, when we would have a pep rally, I thought the auditorium was going to cave in. And Mr. Hal Copes was our principal at the time because Mr. Walker had an illness and he wasn't able to start it off. But it was great.
But you kind of watched women's sports, or girls' sports for that matter, because they start young now. It wasn't like it is now.
No.
You know, I mean, the girls, I started covering Vanderbilt girls softball back in the 80s. And Coach Albert had them so competitive. And so he was pushing buttons that I'd never seen in girls' sports before. It seems to me you might have been before your time because you were determined, being an all-state athlete, but in fairness, girls really didn't have the opportunities
No, we did not.
that the boys have. But that's really started changing at one point.
It did.
You had to be elated when
Well,
it started changing.
That's right. But us tomboys, quote unquote, because that's, if you were very, very active, you know, a lot of people would say that. But when I got to UL, as I progressed in my studies, I was working my way through having little jobs on campus. And my last 2 years, the professors that were in the girls' PE department really encouraged me to come and work there, you know, my last 2 years. So consequently, I was able to run, we had co-ed recreation, and I was in charge of that. And we also, I taught tennis and archery to freshman classes when I was a senior.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.
On this episode of One-on-One, we're going to talk to someone. I don't know how we're going to get all this in. Miss Mary Aucoin is our guest. When we come back, we're going to start off and throw more information at you. So get ready, get the brain ready. We'll absorb it. We'll be right back.
One-on-One is brought to you by the Law Office of Waits and Downer.
What didn't you teach? Is there anything? Or were you pretty just versatile at anything?
I would guess in the field of physical education, I just about could do anything I wanted to, and I was pretty good at it.
But I'm trying to get in your mindset here. When you were maybe asked to teach archery or do something, did you go dive in the books and go out there with a bow and arrow and learn it, or what did you do?
They were teaching us units. You see, they were teaching us units, and so I was taking what I had learned in my class and teaching those fundamentals to the freshman girls. You know, I knew I could do it, and I'm just full of fun, Martin, and I think that was everything was fun to me. I never looked at it as a job or something difficult to do. Tell me to do it, I'm going to get out there and give it my 100%.
And you've led me right into the bragging part here, because I want you to brag a little bit, because I saw where Governor Edwin Edwards asked you to do things. I saw where everybody was asking Mary to step up and run this program or run that program. List as many as you remember the programs that you spearheaded. I saw you're president of your class, you were always in the leading role somewhere.
Well, when I finished UL, I was given the honor of being the best physical education graduate, the top graduate in the girls' PE department. Education 2000 is what you're referring to with Governor Edwards, and you know, it dribbled down through the schools and the community and that, and at that time, I was in the private sector. I had retired from South Terrebonne High School in 1982, and I was working with the little kids.
Right.
I had gymnastics development, GDC Young Learner School, and then we eventually built Mary Oaks Preschool.
Right.
And my whole goal there, because what I learned through those years with just hand-on teaching and working with the small children, that one of the most important ingredients is self-esteem. And to get a child ready for school is not necessarily about the academics. It's about building the character. Because if they learn to be responsible, if they have effective communication skills, if they're able to live within a structure, follow the rules, you know, have self-control, that is the thing that grooms them for success going forward. And
boy,
we follow
do we need
those.
that now, don't we?
Oh gosh, yes,
Oh.
we're still doing it.
I know, but I'm just,
This is.
is it more of a challenge now?
It is.
But you like challenges.
That's right. And we do. We roll our sleeves up and take them head on. I find there's more children with developmental issues, some mild to moderate. We can pretty much handle it in our programs, you know, but if a child needs one-on-one, we can't do that, and it's not fair to the child.
And
so
you're
that's
a perfect person for me to ask this to because of your career. Kids coming up today are entrenched with cell phones and everything else and never have that one-on-one. When we were sitting down as youngsters and mom and dad said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am.
Exactly.
Look them in the eyes, do this, do that. We've sort of lost that art a little bit, haven't we?
We teach that at GDC. It's yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, thank you. Could I please play with that toy? And the child playing with the toy can say yes, or say, I'll let you play with it when I'm finished. So we give them the words to communicate. I think what happens is that there's a mindset that from age 1 to 5, all you have to do is just make them comfortable, do everything for them, just not allowing them to use their little minds. And so I have a program at South Terrebonne, it's called the Mom Tot class, and it's from 12 months, or when they start walking, to 27 months. And it's a mom and tot. It's either mom or dad or papa or grandma. Anybody can bring them. But we set up a circuit, and we put them in the middle of that circuit. And it includes going in different directions, experiencing different levels, and how to negotiate those levels safely, going through things, around things. And so within the scope of that circuit, they can design wherever they want to go, and the parent just makes certain that they are negotiating all the different levels safely. You know, toes go first, not nose. That's our golden rule. And it's just amazing.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
That's incredible, though. You make it sound so simple, but that's not a simple process. And to have someone like you do this is a gift to a community. When did you realize you had the skills to do this?
In that same program you're talking about, Education 2000, we were trying to come up with, Martha South was a co-chairman with me, and we were trying to come up with a speaker that would come and address developing children, you know, and some of the things, especially discipline, you know, how do you do it? Right. And there was a Dr. Betsy Geddes, which was from, I want to say Portland, Oregon. And she, I had a daughter-in-law, my son in Houston, his wife was a teacher, an elementary teacher, and Dr. Geddes had come and did a big program for that school district.
She wrote you a letter, too.
She did.
Yeah.
She wrote me really impressed with the program that we had set up, and just encouraged me to continue doing that. But she wrote a book, Love and Logic, and that was training children through love and with logic. Right. You know, and one of the main things she said, you know, if a child refuses to stay in the seatbelt, then the car stops. And the car does not move until that seatbelt is clicked and that child decides that they're going to be able to stay in that seatbelt. And her comment was that that might take you 1 or 2 times, right. But after that, when they get the message, it's a done deal.
So in other words, don't let the kids negotiate their own future. No. You do it for them.
Right, and with just a very calm, matter-of-fact thing, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. She talked about timeout, you know, and most people think timeout is like a punishment or, you know, a disciplinary thing. No, timeout is just that. It's time out for you because you're in an emotional state because this child is not doing things that might be safe or against your wishes. And time out for the child. I need you to go to your room because I need time out. And when I can, I'm going to go in there and we're going to talk about it. Parents are their child's first teacher. And in order to teach, it has to be done in an environment of somebody is speaking and somebody is listening. And you cannot do that in a rage. So time out is to calm you down, and then you're able to teach them, once again, what is acceptable and not acceptable. And that goes from age 2 all the way up to however old they are.
All these programs that you were helping develop, I think that started in the Clinton era?
Yes.
Okay. So it was a big change across the country taking place, and you seized that opportunity to implement something that you always wanted to do. Is that a fair statement?
It is.
Okay.
But it was a renewal because
Good word.
in my generation, you were disciplined at home.
Right.
The teachers never had to worry about disciplining you at school, because if you didn't follow a rule or refused to do something, your parent was called in, and that was worse than going to the principal's office.
Yeah, you're bringing back
Yeah.
old memories there.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
Some parents go into a situation that their kids are in. Kids can do no wrong. And the parents are going to tell the teacher, this is what I want you to do. I bet you've had a few parent-teacher conferences. I think you get your point across real quick.
I do.
Yeah.
If we have a child that's struggling, and I know exactly what the problem is, I call them into my office, the parent, and I explain to them why it doesn't work and why it's so important that we teach them to do these things for themselves and how to handle it. Like if they're doing everything for them at home and we're teaching independence at school, that confuses the child. And so we both are letting them down. And in order to be successful with children, everybody has to be on the same page. But it's up to the educators to help parents understand why it's important and what are the most, I guess, the most important things that you have to instill in them. And it's a lot of what was taught to me, just being responsible for my own actions, being willing to accept the challenge, and knowing who was in charge.
And I know we veered off a little bit, but I think it's important. But you could probably sense when it has sunk in to a child and they're making that, they turn in that corner. I bet you go, yes. A lot. Yeah.
And I also report to parents, thank you. You have done an awesome job helping us to develop this. And this child is doing so good. Yeah, we keep the parents informed.
And I'm sure now you've been able to watch students down the line become leaders.
Oh, it's amazing what some of them have done. We always ask a parent, well, they come and volunteer. Miss Mary, I came here. They're bringing their own children back to the school. But yeah, it's just when parents can get on the same page, that's so important to help a child believe in themselves, and they just sail. It's so much easier to be a parent when you start them when they're little, then you have no problems. And the parents will stop and say, Miss Mary, you taught me, and they'll tell me whatever it is, and I don't ever remember that, but they said, and it worked.
Yeah.
So.
Well, you got a great track record. Okay, so in 1957, you graduated from Port Barre High School. 1961, graduated from USL in May with a Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education and Physical Education and Science. So that's what they were dangling that carrot to you over there in South Terrebonne. 1964, married Rudy O'Quinn. On June 20th, then 1966, birth of your first son, Bernie. 1968, birth of your second son, Kurt. 1976, spearheaded the acceptance of gymnastics as an extra school sport by the High School Athletic Association. What was that? I'm gonna keep going, but what was that? Explain that
Well,
to me.
that's when I went to this. Of course, I had Dan Landry was the principal, and he was just awesome. And he saw the program that we were doing, and he believed in it. And so I went to him and asked. That's when I requested to be able to compete against other schools and their teams. And he said, then we have to get it approved by the Louisiana High School Athletic Association. So myself and Bill Jennings, who still teaches gymnastics in Thibodaux, we wrote the rules out, and we went with Mr. Landry to meet with Tommy Henry in Baton Rouge and presented our program. And he said, by all means, I mean, there was no question that he was going to approve it.
So I got to change the record a little bit. Got to change history, because I've always thought certain coaches who were teaching sports, male coaches to girl athletes, sort of changed girls' athletics here in the parish. I got to correct the record. You were doing that before anybody else. So I apologize. I'm correcting the record today on One-on-One.
Okay.
So in
That's when they all went back into, that's when the girls were able to play softball and track and all of those sports. And of course, they have added so many more since then.
What did you see? Because I always said, we've covered girls' athletics here at the station quite a bit. And when they get competitive on something, get out the way.
Exactly.
They are coming at it.
Yes.
Did you sense that way back when? Because you played sport.
Oh yes. Well, the girls on my gym team was just could not wait. You know, they kept saying, chomping at the bit. I mean, they just was ready to go and compete. And we had so much fun. You load on a school bus and you go, you know, and come, regardless of what sport you play in.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.
On this episode of One-on-One, we're going to talk to someone. I don't know how we're going to get all this in. Miss Mary O'Quinn is our guest. When we come back, we're going to start off and throw more information at you. So get ready, get the brain ready. We'll absorb it. We'll be right back.
One-on-One is brought to you by the law office of Waits and Downer.
Just a changeover. And really, that was an education in itself for people especially boys who thought they were the only athletes around,
Mm-hmm.
to watch the girls transcend into something. And
Yeah.
a lot of the state championships that were taking place and the trophies coming back into the schools were girls' athletics. You had to be very proud of that.
I'm really am. I'm thankful that what our actions caused so many girls to be able to compete in athletics,
Yeah.
because it did so much for me.
In 1982, you built a gymnastics facility.
I did.
Give you the floor in that. Tell me
I
how that all came.
retired from school teaching. I got to the point where I felt like there were no, it goes back to, there wasn't a challenge anymore. I had accomplished those goals, you know, and people in the community were really encouraging me to teach the younger kids. In fact, it was one of the dads that found me a building on Grand Caillou just to lease for 5 years, just to see if that's really what I wanted to do. And so by the 4th year, you know, my husband and I decided we were going to invest in property, not too far from where the gym had been.
Yeah.
And so we built that school, and we had gym meets there, and just, I mean, Cajun Classic, that was the name of the tournament. So when Kim has been working for me for over 44 years, and she's like my daughter. She had a baby girl, and I'm looking around and I'm like, everybody's just babysitting. I just didn't feel like that was a program that was challenging the development of the children. So I said, hey, that's my next frontier. We're going to just dive into it. And so I did.
Yeah. Which you blazed another trail.
That's right. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it with quality or to the best of my ability, because it's a waste of time if you don't put all the energy you have into, especially when it comes to children.
Complacency drives you crazy, doesn't
It does. I can't stand to be in mud. I can't move.
All right, so in 1998, you built a full licensed preschool. I'm sort of talking about I'm talking with maybe the woman version of John Curtis or something of that name. So did you get bored again in 1998 and you said, okay?
No, I didn't quite know. There many professionals within the parish wanted to send their children, but couldn't because they were working.
Right.
And so they kept saying, Miss Mary, you got to keep them all day long. And I was hell-bent on not having an all-day-long program at GDC. It was not in my plan for that program. So, I took over Rainbow Cottage, which was right up the street, still on School Street, and did that for a while. And those 2 lots where Mary Oaks was came up for sale. And so we bought that, and then as you gather now, I can't do anything half-assed. So I said, we're going to build a quality building, especially for preschool. And that's what we did. And now we have a little yellow bus, and they go from one school to the other, those that want to participate in both programs.
You had a letter from Jeannie Burns that you had in the folder. Asked you to serve as a member of the Pocket of Excellence Advisory Committee. Well, just the title sort of tells you what it's all about, but tell me about that.
That, again, was associated with the Education 2000. It was a group that they gathered, people that were in the industry, you know, and could make some contribution to setting up an ideal program. So other people that that professional wanted to get into it would have some kind of guidelines to use so that there would be programs that actually challenged the development of those children.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
I've interviewed a lot of retired teachers, and a lot of retired teachers that come here. You could tell they truly loved to teach. Now, on the flip side, I know some teachers that are pulling their hair out going, why did I choose this profession? But there's a genuine love that I sense for what you've done. And I'm not sure where it comes from. I don't know if it comes from seeing the kid being accomplished or you just love to do it. What is it? What makes you love it?
I started teaching when I was 13 years old. I was teaching the little ones in Sunday school. And every time I had a chance to teach, I love it. I just love teaching. I love working with the kids. I love working with the parents. That was a whole new dimension once I started doing that. And just having open and honest conversations and telling them what I am observing and getting input from them. When you work with people, if you listen more than talk, you learn a lot.
Yeah, I always say that. When you ask a question, listen to their answer.
That's right.
It'll give you your next question.
That's right.
So as you look at everything compiled and everything that you've done, I keep getting the word trust. You know, it keeps rattling in my brain. Parents had to trust you to do these things. You were doing these pioneering things. Parents were giving you their children and saying, great idea, go for it.
And they still do.
It's incredible.
You know, yeah, being a leader is one thing, but surrounding yourself with awesome teachers is the only way that you can have those dreams come to fruition. And I've been blessed with that. I've got 6 girls that have been with me over 25 years in the preschool arena, and it's still going.
If I got those 6 on the side, and I said, Miss Mary's in the other room, but is she tough? Is she strict? What would they say?
No.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm mom. And we're family.
Great answer, by the way. Yeah.
We're a family. I mean, when you work together that long, and our whole focus is on the child.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a job to us. It's a dedication. We take pride in being able to help parents with their children. We take pride when we see children accomplishing things, you know, like the little 2-year-old class might start off just all over the place because that's where they are, you know.
Yeah.
And within a month and a half, they are getting in line, they're following directions. It's amazing. It's just amazing. And when you, in the middle of that, when you see that much accomplishment, that's the gas. I mean, it just makes you want to take off.
When did you feel like, when you get letters from people like this, and you get letters from Edwin Edwards, when did you've been very successful, but when did you know that you had made it in your life, your career? When did you sense, hey, I really made it?
I guess probably about 15 years ago, you know, when everything was going really good, and I had so much support from the community and my staff. That's the reason I've been able to continue it. You see, that lady sitting out there used to work for me for a long time. She volunteered to come here this morning.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're friends forever whenever we, and that's how I treat them,
And
like
she
they're
married
family.
into Mulberry or Mayberry, as we call it. She just wanted to get close to Mulberry.
I
Yeah.
think Mayberry was lucky to catch her.
Yeah.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm.
When you really look at your career and you see the accomplishments, and like I told you, there's no way we can get to everything, but I think people are getting a good sense of who you are and what you're all about. One of the questions I always ask somebody on this show is, what do you do for fun? Because most of them have jobs that are very stressful or demanding or things of that nature. This is a lot of your fun. Are you a workaholic?
I do go to the casino once a week.
Do you win?
Yes and no. I mean, a casino, you just go there for the fun. If you
Right.
go there to win, you know. But
Yeah.
no, just we'll have dinner together. The whole group will get together at night, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But just working on just our fun is our work.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I want to make sure we get everything. But like I said, look, I'm talking about, have you ever seen me with papers on one-on-one? Not really, but I can't remember all this. It's just, it's too much to remember. Any regrets along the way that you would look back and go, oh, I sure wish I'd have went? It seemed like everything you touched sort of worked.
Yeah, and I think being aware of where your strong points are, you know, like not getting into an arena that you are not going to be able to have success with, you know, and high school gymnastics was as far as I wanted to go, you know, and when I was able to combine the sport with child development, and then that became my golden egg.
It's a mission.
Yes.
That'd be your mission statement, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You know, when you see children struggle, I saw a lot of girls struggle at the high school level. And the thing that when I sat down and tried to pinpoint what I thought the problem was, it went back to self-esteem and not having effective communication skills. And that's
Or how to survive that group attack, for lack of a better word.
Well, to feel good enough about yourself to know that I can walk away from that and I'm going to be fine.
Amen. And that's where most people get in trouble.
That they don't know how to walk away.
So you give them the skills to walk away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's incredible. Probably saved many lives, haven't you?
I hope.
Yeah, that's
The
the
good
goal.
Lord guides me through all of this, and I've had many a conversation when I'm sitting there trying to decide something, and I just say, show me the way.
Yeah. So you rely on faith a lot.
I do.
Yeah. And so we know the casino, but when you've really had a stressful day and you get in your car and you turn on the radio sounds so primitive to young kids now. Turn on your chips or your CDs or whatever you use. What do you listen to?
Neil Diamond. And you know, I run into some of my gymnasts that were really little when we were competing back in the early 80s. And they'll say, Miss Mary, you know what I remember the most? Neil Diamond and the Green Van.
What's your favorite Neil Diamond song?
Oh, gosh. Oh, Sweet Caroline.
Oh, yeah, naturally.
Of
Yeah.
course.
You got to go. Sung Blue. That was a good
Song
one,
Sun
too.
Blue. I have every one of his CDs.
Oh, wow.
Every
That's it.
one of them.
And I told you the time would fly, but if I were able to get everyone who works with you, former coaches, teachers, if Governor Edwin Edwards was still alive, I was able to get him. I was able to get, you know, your husband, your children, everybody who's been around you. And I said, all right, y'all got to give me one word that would describe Mary. One word, or Miss Mary, depending on where they're at in this stat. What would you hope the one word would be?
Love of people.
Yeah.
I just love working with people. Little people, big people.
I knew you were going to say love. Because reading over all this, your career, certainly, you put a lot of love in it. I don't know your parents, but obviously they put you in the right direction.
They
'Cause
did.
you have rolled on since then. And I want to thank you for what you've done. What an accomplishment. What a great accomplishment.
Well, my pleasure. It's been my pleasure and my blessing.
And thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
All right.
For all of your cases, including those with catastrophic significance, call Waits and Downer Law Firm. This one-on-one program has been brought to you by the law offices of Waits and Downer.